Hello, guys. This is the Legendary Ladies podcast, and we are talking about Red, White, and Royal Blue. It's a very exciting movie. Actually, Morgan has read the book, but before we
I
start,
have.
you have. But before we start talking about that, we do have a Patreon. So if you guys want to watch live, that's the perfect place to be. We actually record a lot of these really early on, so sometimes you get like a month ahead of time. I know in September we're recording a lot of episodes ahead of time, so this is a perfect time to become a patron if you want our pile of episodes. But let's get started and talk about this movie. I saw the trailer for it a little while ago. I knew it was happening because I've read other books from this author, and I was like, oh, this is
Mhm.
cool that she has a book coming out, or a book coming out that's going to be a movie. And then obviously this came out, and we like to talk about queer content here, so we're like,
Me
why not?
too.
Yeah. So Morgan, you read the book. Tell
I
me
have I have read the
your
book.
experience there.
Yeah, so I actually read the book on my honeymoon, which is funny. It was like one
Love
of
that so much.
I brought so many books to the honeymoon. I was like, I should bring like a romance to the honeymoon because it's going to be a romantic time. And it like it sort of cut through the other book I brought, which was true crime, which is not as romantic as you can imagine. But yeah, so I have really nice memories of this book because I read it while floating in a pool in Mexico. We had our own swim up room and I was just like floating, reading about Alex and Henry and all of their different romantic foibles. So I think I gotta say, I think it probably gives me a little bit of a different perspective on the movie, and unfortunately, probably made me a little bit more harsh on the movie because I watched it with last night with Mike, and at the end, I was like, "Hmm, the book wasn't like that." And he was like, "I thought it was cute. I don't know." Like, I don't know.
Same. Like that was my thought as I was watching it and I finished it. Oh, it's cute. Oh,
Yeah,
I'm like, this has some the Christmas Prince vibes to
Yeah,
it. It's what
very
it felt like.
rom-com, but it felt like
Yes.
almost like it
it
felt
felt like
like a step above Hallmark, but also not so like it was like this weird mix of, oh, this could be there's moments where I was like, whoa, that was actually pretty good dialogue, and then there's others
Yes.
where like,
where
oh,
you're like,
that's totally a
"Ooh."
green screen and that was totally cheesy. So it also didn't quite know what it wanted to be, but I almost appreciated that. Like I'm glad it didn't go full rom-com, and I think if it went full like sophisticated romance, I don't know if I would have wanted that either. I think it worked for what they were trying to target, which is also interesting, something we'll talk about, is that this is obviously for like high schoolers, right? Or early college kids who want to watch this, and they made
Yeah.
it rated R.
Yeah,
Which
I don't really
I
understand. Yeah.
don't think it was the physical aspect because I got to tell you, there was one point. Okay, first off, disclaimer, this is a spoiler podcast and it is about a movie that's rated R that had sex scenes in it. So we are going to be talking about some mature content. Viewer discretion and listening advised.
Is advised.
Although
There was one
honestly,
point
it
where
wasn't too
it wasn't though.
It
But like
really
there was one
wasn't.
point where Henry grabs Alex's back and like squeezes a little bit. I was like, "Oh, that was hot. Should have been his ass."
right, and they wouldn't
Oh,
have done that
snap.
here. Yeah.
No, no, no. Yeah, I don't know which of you said it, but it felt like a Netflix Christmas movie. But that's kind of exactly the unfortunately, like, production value-wise, that is, I
So
think,
cheap.
if a net it aspired to the production values of a Netflix Christmas movie. I It's so funny because I loved the book, and I did a lot of moments in this movie, but it is one of the cheapest movies I've seen
It was
in a
pretty cheap.
really long time, where I would go like, "What was, like, the budget for this film? Did they blow the whole budget on Uma Thurman? Like, what is happening? Like, why can't they walk outside?" Like, they were like, "We can't afford to have you guys outside, so you gotta be inside." Like, again, spoiler alert, but, like, one of the big moments of the movie is where they, like, look outside and they see all the support that Henry is getting,
Yeah.
and, like, all the, like, LGBTQ flags and all of that stuff. You would think they go, "Hey, if you walk out there, like, things are gonna change." And they're like, "We know." And I was like, "Okay, this is gonna be their big moment where they walk out on the balcony and they look out at the crowd." And then, like, they never walk outside because, like, the movie doesn't have the budget for them to be outside.
Well, they
which is so
walked out,
interesting.
but they didn't see they
Exactly,
didn't
you don't
film
see the crowd because they don't have the
Yeah.
budget for that like that composting of like just the 10 people extras that they could afford just
Or they
over and
couldn't
over
afford the
again.
extras at all because there weren't many extras. We do have new Rachel in the comments. I want to say hi. They also read the book and they said, did they blow the budget on that cake? It must have been the cake.
Maybe it really was $75,000 on the cake.
It didn't look
I
quite
did see a
that
comment.
expensive.
I saw that one of the actors who played, I think, Henry, said that for 2 days after that filming of the scene, he was still finding cake in his hair.
Oh my God, that's so funny. Yeah, the other weird thing is somebody who read the book is how much stuff they changed or just like lopped out entirely to kind of make it work in a 2-hour film. So
I'm guessing supporting characters because that was one of my biggest things. It was like, oh, there are none.
supporting characters. So I actually read like a review of the movie last night after I watched it, which was like I can't remember where I read it now, so apologies. But the main point was like I wish this had been a series, like a limited mini series or something, because then it could have gotten into like all of the different subplots in the book and would have felt more well rounded, and there would have been more than like 2 characters essentially. As it was, so in the book, Alex has a sister who they completely cut for the movie. And Nora, who is in the movie, but basically just be like, you go, boy. And
Yeah, the other sister, right?
pretty
The
much
sister of the
nothing else.
prince.
No, the his Alex's friend, or I think she's the granddaughter of the vice president.
She's like the campaign manager.
Yeah, and she's like trying to get with that guy who doesn't show up ever again, or is that another person?
Yes, no, you're right. So in the book, Alex, his sister, and Nora are known as like the White House trio. They all hang out together and they're like known in the press, and everybody is kind of like, oh, they're like the hot new up and coming political animals and stuff like that. And Nora is really into, if I remember right, like data and spreadsheets and stuff like that. She's great in the book, but it seems like what they tried to do is like condense the sister character and Nora into like one character, but then also not give that character any lines. So in the book, Henry has a sister and a brother who we see in the movie, but also his friend who is a literal non-entity. They might as well have not even had him in the movie. And in the book, his sister also has like a drug problem. Which is not, obviously they didn't have time to pull any of that in there. The other weird change I thought that they made was that in the book, it's Alex's parents are divorced. So his mom and his dad are not together. And it's kind of a big part of his character development. Like this happened like when he was younger.
He felt like too much perfect here, right? Because that sounds like that would have given him some more depth. Here it's just like, yeah, like I get about being a working class, but then also I'm the president's son. It was very interesting to see him try to pull that. He's just like, oh yeah, no, I am the working class. Like, you live in the White House.
I am the He's like, I am the working class, and when I don't live in the White House, I live in this beautiful beachside, this beautiful lakeside mansion
cabin.
And obviously, it's like that's really tough for me. It feels like they kind of skimmed over things that would have made Alex a little bit more relatable, and in the book gave him a lot more depth. Rachel says the identity of the person who leaked the emails is different in the book too. So that's I think the other big major difference between the book and the movie. And I'm sure there's like a million little ones, but I read this 2 years ago, so I don't really remember. But in the book, the emails are leaked by the opposing candidate, like the Republican candidate, Richards. His team like leaks all these emails, and then he turns out to be like a really bad guy who's done like some like harassment and blackmail and things like that. But the character of like the unscrupulous journalist who hooked up with Alex does not exist in the book at all. And so I feel like thematically it's like a little bit weird to have this story where in the original book it's like somebody who's not LGBTQ like friendly, who is maybe legislating against those issues, releasing those emails to hurt a political opponent, where in the movie it's like another queer man who is mad that Alex like won't hook up with him anymore, who's like releasing them as like retaliation. I don't know, I feel like thematically that's not the same, and I didn't love that change honestly from the book.
No, it's definitely
It's interesting
understandable.
because you mentioned, I kind of want to step into this idea of relatability, because there was a moment where I remember watching the two characters, Alex and Henry, together, and I was like, that is such a relatable moment to me. And it's when Henry and Alex are about to, as Henry says, make love for the first time, and Alex is like, how does this work? How do we like figure out who does what? Oh my god, I feel so awkward. Because I feel like that's how a lot of things happen in the real world when you're talking about some sort of physical contact. I feel like there's, in a lot of movies and rom-coms, it's this beautiful moment and they sweep themselves onto the bed and everything comes off smoothly. But in real life, your bra gets stuck in something.
Yes.
You're wearing socks.
That's
like, you're
true,
like,
yeah.
I hit my head against your headboard. I liked that awkwardness because I thought it felt really real. I thought it was cute where Henry's like, don't worry, I went to English boarding school. I got you,
That
babe.
line made me laugh a lot, actually. I was like, yeah, I can imagine.
I was also like, how did you get them to sign NDAs, Prince? Your Royal Highness.
Seriously.
How
They're
has this not come
just
out
really
yet?
trustworthy for sure.
Henry's been busy.
But I really liked that moment. I know it's weird to be like, I loved the complete and utter awkwardness of this, but it was so relatable to me. And then the scene where they're sitting down and they're like talking about kind of where they are on the spectrum, and Alex is like, I just need to tell you I'm bi, and Henry's like, I'm, as to quote him, gay as a maypole. And I really liked that communication and that conversation. I hope that that's what happens in the book, and I hope that resonated with listeners, because we've talked about this before on the podcast, where it is rare to see a character to the camera say, I am bi. And that's something that we've talked about before in being a lack of that representation, because you can have a character who is bi, but then having a character who actively identifies with it and shares it, especially to the person who they're going to become involved with. I think that was really critical, and I really hope it resonated with people. So Kat, I'm going to turn that over to you.
Yeah, no, I think it definitely did, and I think especially for a male character, you don't get to see it very often at all. So I like that it was a big part of his character, and we got to see different storyline. Not, I mean, there wasn't like a huge in-depth storyline about the struggles of bisexuality, but I don't think there needed to be. I think it was just cool that he got to say it a couple of times, and we got to see like his family react to it. And I was mentioning this before, but I was watching Heartstoppers, and one of the characters is bi there too, and it was interesting to see how they dealt with it differently. I think that in Heartstoppers, obviously, it's a television show, so they have a lot of time to like dig into the identity aspect of stuff. And I feel this movie does dig into the identity aspect more of the public figure idea of it, right? Because it's more
Yeah.
of like, oh, I'm a prince, or I'm the president's son, and this is how people are going to react. And honestly, what I liked about this movie more than Heartstoppers, even though I think Heartstoppers is the stronger version of this, I guess, is that I like that it's actually really only about the couple. It's the thing I hated and liked about this movie
Yeah.
is that you have so much time with the couple, so you get to see them interact and get to see them grow. But then I also hate that we don't get the supporting characters. But on the flip side, with Heartstoppers in season 2, especially, I feel like they focused a little bit too much on the supporting characters. And like, I want to see the main characters a little bit more. That's kind of what I'm here for, is to see that couple. So, I think there's a balancing act, and I think Heartstoppers probably does that balancing act a little bit better, but I thought it was very interesting that they had just so much focus on these two characters. And I think that the actors, they played a good job with it. Their chemistry was solid, but also you have to go into this knowing this is, which is it's a pure rom-com. It's not really trying to be anything else, you know? And
No.
and I enjoyed that.
And I will
The
say,
moment where
oh, sorry.
Sorry, go Morgan.
I was gonna say, I will say in the book, so in the movie, it seems like Alex is like pretty somewhat comfortable with the fact that he's bisexual. He's like, at least explored that a little bit. In the book, it's definitely more of a journey for him to, wrap his like mind around the fact that like he's bisexual, and like there is more of a storyline attached to that, where I feel like that maybe the movie was like, we're gonna lean so heavily on the Henry stuff, like we don't have time for all of the Alex, identity stuff. So some of that got sanded down a little bit. But yeah, I mean, it is exactly, it's very rom-com-y, this movie, even though there's like a lot of moving pieces to it. I did have like some questions where like when they all like are getting low and Get Low.
Yes. They're all it felt very Keira Knightley Pride and Prejudice, where the two of them are dancing and the whole ballroom disappears. That's exactly what this moment felt like to me.
So somebody watched the 2005 Keira Knightley Pride and Prejudice like directly before making this movie, because there were like 2 or 3 moments that were like 100% just from that movie, but they were so ridiculous that it was like hard to take seriously. So one is their eyes meet across the room as everyone gets low, but they are still not low. I was like, what is happening? Like, am I hallucinating? And then the other moment is when they're in the British Museum at night, because of course there's no cameras and there's nothing to worry about there.
Or security guards. There's not one.
No worry about art thieves, man.
Don't worry about
his security. Like they ditched their Secret Service details far too often to be reasonable.
That Secret Service
I don't even know if they had
bad. They're real bad. But yeah, when they're in the British Museum and they're walking around the statues, if that's not like the exact moment in Pride and Prejudice, the 2005 Keira Knightley movie, where she is like walking around one of the statues, looking at it at Pemberley, and going like, oh, he is real rich. Which is honestly one of my favorite moments from that movie, is when they pull up outside his house after she's already said no to him. And she sees how big the house is, how insanely rich he is. And she's just thinking to herself, I just said no. Oh my God. It's so funny. But yeah, I was like, somebody did their like, it felt like somebody did their like romance movie, rom-com homework and just like really focused in on Pride and Prejudice, and was like, I mean, I don't see why I can't have them their eyes meet during Get Low.
We should have done a red, white, and royal blue
versus Pride and Prejudice.
No, bingo, like rom-com bingo.
Yeah. Rom-com bingo.
A couple of
I didn't
my
know it was
friends
going to be
did that.
such a rom-com, though. I did not know.
I thought it was going to be a little bit more.
The cake falling on them didn't give it away.
I guess I didn't
really focus on the, because when I watched the trailer, I was like, oh, this is just going to be a book. Because a lot of like these type of books, when you read them, they're not rom-coms. They're usually just like, they feel very YA. They feel very introspective. They feel like Her Name in the Sky. Like every single book feels like that. Whereas it's like, all right, there's some introspection. It's just character stories. Like this is rom-com, and I didn't expect that.
Yeah, and the book is like a little the book is rom-com-y as well, but I think it balances out by having like all like a lot more character stuff. You can be more internal in the characters' minds, whereas like when you take a step back and you have to adapt it for the screen, a lot of that stuff comes out, and what remains is a lot of the rom-com-y stuff.
I have seen a lot on Instagram and TikTok. I think EW's been doing this, and a couple other groups have been doing it, where they have the clip up top and then the written paragraph below it to compare and contrast the book versus the show. And I gotta tell you, just reading it, I was like, oh wow, this is so much better. I don't think the interpretation was terrible. I'll be honest, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I really, really liked watching this. And I went to work today and I was like, Laura Ann, I need you to watch this movie so we can nerd out about how cheesy and ridiculous it was, but also at the same time kind of cute and awkward, and had some fun little moments in there. there. But reading that part, I was like, oh, this is so much better. And it's just,
Right.
it's what happens when you have a low budget and you have, but again, it wasn't bad. I didn't dislike it. And I'll be really honest. I thought Alex's growth and his moment where he has his plan for Texas. He goes to Texas. He does all of that. And he's telling this story and he's coming into his own, and you see Henry get not jealous, but you feel Henry getting frustrated that he can't do something like that. I thought that was exceedingly well done. And I also think that that's something that personally I relate to, where you have someone you care about or someone in your family who is deeply accomplished, and you sit there and you're like, well, here I am. Guess this is the way it is. And that is something that connects to a lot of people. And I think they did that aspect really, really well. I really loved that storyline.
Yeah, I think in the movie, the Henry kind of came out ahead in terms of like the characterization between Henry and Alex. Like, I feel like they did a pretty good job with him, whereas Alex, because a lot of his storyline ended up getting like truncated or chopped up or like pulled back a bit, it ended up feeling like he got a little bit of the short end of the stick in terms of like characterization, because in the book there's a lot more of the stuff with the campaign and it's a bigger deal. In the movie they're just like, let's flip Texas blue. I'm like, okay, yeah, if only we could do that easily.
which is interesting because I felt like the movie kind of showed that he was probably the narrator in the book, right? Because they did like kind of come from his point of view a lot of times in the movie.
I think it was a lot. I think it was maybe almost entirely from his point of view.
Yeah.
He was basically like the point of view character for the book.
And you could kind of tell that with the movie too. What were you gonna say, Amy?
I don't recall.
I
don't remember.
Another big change that I just remembered from the book. So in the book, they have a character named, I want to say his name's like Raphael. Rachel says Alex is the narrator, I think. I think that too, yeah. There's a character named like Raphael Luna or something like that. It's a cool name, which is why I remember it. And he is like a queer senator, I think. He's in politics. This is, my memories again are hazy. But basically he's kind of like a mentor to Alex, and Alex goes and like talks to him all the time. And I believe that like he had like a connection with Alex's dad, like maybe Alex's dad helped him get elected or something like that. And then again, spoiler alert, like towards the end, you find out that he's kind of betrayed them. He's kind of betrayed Alex, because like he's been working with the Richards campaign because he's getting like blackmailed.
I wonder if that's where that reporter character came from.
Yeah, he's like getting blackmailed, but it's more affecting in the book because this is somebody who like Alex looked up to, and it kind of ties into that idea of like how much he wants to be involved in politics and like the good side and the bad side of politics, where this one, it just kind of feels like it skims right through, and it's just like, and then they
won. They definitely did. It was very heartwarming moment where it's like, of course this plan worked. It was like, whoa, okay, I kind of wish I saw a little bit more of the plan. I know they were talking about it, but it's just like, yeah, I think there could have been more room to breathe on that in that regard.
I was surprised about the pacing of the movie, and I'm curious it was the same in the book, where I mean they got together and I'm like, we're only a quarter of the way through the movie, we're only a half hour in. I was expecting a lot more enemies to lovers, and very much
especially from the beginning.
I know, Kat, we've talked about this before. We love those kind of tropes where like,
I do.
Oh no, we have to be friends and fall in love. And I really like that storyline, and we only got a very small segment of it, and they didn't even really do a good job. I'm like, how are these reporters not picking up on the fact that you two don't like each other? You're actually being terrible with each other. Like, it's pretty awful. And then all of a sudden they're in an actual literal closet smelling each other's cologne, which was hot.
Oh, it was also funny because the actors had to pretend like they were smushed together in that closet, which was and as we were watching it, Mike goes, "That closet is big enough for both of them." And I was like, "I
Jeff,
know, Mike.
there's room. Come on board.
Basically, I was like, Mike, you just got to go along with the illusion of the thing." But yeah, it's like they couldn't have found like a tighter closet. They didn't have budget for a smaller closet. But yeah, no, I in the book, I will say because like the book is, and I'm probably lying, but the book is somewhere between like 400 to maybe more, maybe to 500 pages. Like it's pretty long actually. So they have like a lot of time to develop that like they don't like each other and like oh maybe he's kind of cool and like oh I'm like now we're talking all the time, so that by the time they have that like kiss at the New Year's party you're like oh yeah they've been like starting to like each other for a while, whereas in the movie it's like whoa we only like 20 minutes in.
I did like the text communications. First off, the cheesy, like, I evaporated into leaves part was weird. Those were weird graphics. But I
Yeah,
was
they were.
really into the part where they're like lying on the bed, looking at each other, but actually talking
That
on
was
speakerphone.
cute.
And I thought they
It
did that
felt
montage
different.
well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've never
different.
seen something like that. So I
Yeah.
was like, oh, they're really connecting. And it made me, because honestly, in the beginning, and I do like a good enemies to lovers, but I actually didn't love them. I was like, oh, the chemistry's gonna be off. I don't know how I feel. And then, like, when they actually started talking, I was like, oh, never mind. I think it'll be fine.
I like it
Yeah.
too because let's be honest, in the modern day, a lot of times you meet someone and you got work, you got school, you got stuff to do. We do a lot of text flirting. We do a
I was
lot
also
of
just thinking about like the apps too. So I was thinking
Yeah.
like that was very much like, oh, okay, that makes sense of, you know, and I like that the gradual talking of it of learning about each other, even though they technically knew each other in person, but it did feel, like you said, a little bit more modern in that regard.
I did really like that aspect. I thought that was really
Yeah.
well done.
Yeah, I thought that was well done, and it was one of my favorite parts in the book too, is when they're starting to, like, get to know each other and they're talking more often, and it's, like, a lot of flirting and a lot of, like, fun banter back and
Yeah.
forth, and, like, I wish that the movie had pulled a little bit more of that in, but because they, like, decided to get them together in, like, the first 20 minutes of the movie, there
Yes.
wasn't a lot of time for that, but in
Which
the
I'd
book
rather than waiting an hour and a half. Be like,
yeah,
"Oh,
yeah,
for
oh,
30
me
minutes."
too. And I kind of knew that they were probably gonna have to do that. I was like, it's only a 2-hour movie, and there's like a lot of stuff that they need to get to after they get together. But I just looked it up, and like Red, White, and Royal Blue is 421 pages. So you can imagine that like there's a lot
Wow.
more room for them to like chat and flirt and stuff like that. I also was kind of sad when they have their emails back and forth to each other. So in the book, they do this thing with the emails that I thought was really interesting and clever, where they like talk to each other about famous like gay love affairs throughout the ages, where they'll like talk about different historical figures and their like gal pal, like so like Eleanor Roosevelt and her like good friend, and they'll quote things from like different letters between different
Oh, that's
like
fun.
historical gay figures, and I thought that was really cool. Obviously it's something like that's probably not going to fit in a 2-hour movie, but I was like, oh, we lost all the gay historical figures.
They could have probably made a reference somehow.
I feel like they could have thrown one of those in there.
Mhm. It's like we're like Eleanor Roosevelt.
We know all about Eleanor Roosevelt because of this podcast.
Oh, hey,
I'm
it's the only historical figure I know about.
I'm just gonna go on the weirdest, briefest tangent for a second here. My work team, we've decided that we're haunted. We have like certain noises that come up in our workplace out of nowhere, sounds of rattling, weird musical cues. Like we have a drinker, because I work with animals. We have a drinker that's got like it literally starts humming, and then you get close to it and starts going faster, and then it zoom zoom zoom. And we've investigated it. There's no weird animal living in there. We don't know what it is. But for whatever reason today, someone on our team goes, "Shut up, Martha." And we have now decided that all the spooky sounds are going to be presidents or president related. So that's Martha Washington.
I like it.
We've got some spooky noise we've got George Washington. We do have Abe. We've also named Theodore. So we have a whole running gag within the last 12 hours that all the haunting noises we hear at our work run are all presidents or president related.
You got to
So-
get Eleanor in there. There
We
you
will.
go.
Eleanor
We
Hick.
will. I will make an effort. Next time I hear a strange sound, I will identify it as Eleanor. Anywho,
Speaking of strange sounds, what was up with Uma Thurman's accent?
oh,
That was a good
my
transition.
Thank you.
Look,
Uma Thurman's a
Look.
good actress. I don't
She
understand.
is. I didn't understand what
I
was
thought-
happening.
I have so much problem with this
It was
because
intense.
Also, why did she need an accent? We get it. You're from the South.
I know it didn't have to be that intense. Also, they could have just hired somebody with a Southern accent. I don't know why it had to be like this.
well, that was the problem. I think
Reese
you guys were
Witherspoon
joking, like,
does a good Southern accent.
she does a good Southern
Yeah.
Yeah,
accent.
they're not getting Reese Witherspoon.
I'm so
I'm surprised they got Uma.
But she's pretty good. What are you gonna say, Amy?
I said I was frustrated by her character because it's a woman president. We are excited. We have a woman president, a woman chief of staff. We've got a woman prime minister. It felt very much like we're putting in these characters because this is a big deal to represent this, and I loved it and I wanted more. I wanted more from
they didn't
her.
really show much of it.
Yeah.
No, and you had the opportunity to. And I think the thing that would have helped was to make her feel less like a caricature. That accent made her feel like a caricature, where she's like, I sent you with one job. Don't screw shit up. And he screws stuff up. And like the way she's sitting there flipping through her books, she's like, I sent you with one job. And I was like, I can't focus here
I
on the
wonder
fact
what-
that this could be really cool. Because it's just so distracting. And why was this the choice?
I was gonna say. I wonder
don't
what
know.
was her what was her direction. Like I don't know, because it does. This is like your most famous actor in your production. And again, Uma Thurman's a good actress. This is like it's such a weird.
I wonder if like Uma came in and she was like, guys, I've been workshopping this really fun accent. And they were like, no one can tell her no. We got Uma Thurman. We offered her $10 and a stick of gum, and she said she would come and do this movie. She's like, I'll only do this movie if you allow me to workshop this new accent I've been trying.
You know what? I think that's what happened.
It could also have been the other way around. She could have been like, I would really like to not do this accent. And they were like, we need you to clearly be from Texas.
It's
I think
integral to the
honestly, it's
character.
I think it was probably that one. I don't
I
think
think
it.
so,
I don't-
Because she
yeah,
was
I
probably
think
like,
that's probably
fine.
it.
If you
All
want
right.
this, that's what y'all gonna get.
You'll
like-
get the accent you ask for.
You ask for it, you get it. And I
Like
was like,
in
oh
the
gosh.
in the book, she is from Texas, and that is a big part of like the character. But it doesn't say that she has like the accent of Foghorn Leghorn, so I don't understand why that needed to happen.
Also, I feel like Texas, out of all the southern states, especially depending on where you're from, Texas, some people don't even have an accent. Like if you're from like
that was
Dallas
gonna
or
be-
something.
Yeah, that was going to be my thing too. It's like, I don't know. Like, there are some people in Texas with very light accents or very like mild accents or none
Look,
at all.
I've seen every episode of 911 Lone Store, and only one person has an accent in that TV show.
I think that was
That's
probably
Austin,
for the
Texas, which is where
better.
they're from.
Yeah, and
That's
again,
true.
Austin's also another place that doesn't really have accents. Like I've been to Austin. There weren't many accents.
And his father didn't have an accent, which
No.
I did want
Yeah,
more of. I
true.
wanted more of that Latino storyline. I thought that was the potential for the most connectability, and I really wish that we had gotten more of that.
Yeah, it was. I spent most of those scenes, unfortunately, because I was a book reader, going, wait, are the parents still together? And because it was very confusing, because in the books, they were like very, very divorced. They don't have like a bad like relationship, but they talk about them being divorced a lot and like when they got divorced and that whole process. So it's like a storyline throughout the book. And so when I was watching the movie, I was like, wait a minute, they're acting like they're still married. Are they still married in this? So I mean, I think it came down to like them condensing down the story into basically being just about two characters and then kind of removing anything else that wasn't specifically about those two characters. So I feel like what we ended up losing out on was like a lot of the characterization of like Alex, because his dad is a big part of the books and a big part of his character, but here he's, barely on screen, and when he is, it's like not about any of their like, complications from a divorce. It's just like, hey dad, you mind if we take out the old plank of wood into the lake?
Can I ask about the family reactions to them coming out? Was that was that the same in the books? Because it was and this is just like Alex says in the book, everybody's coming out story is different, or in the show, everybody's coming out story is different. Everybody deserves to come out at their own pace. Everybody's reaction, their families are gonna be different. But this one felt very much, we're on your side, we're not. Is it that cut and dry and black and white in the book?
And I also want to add, before you get into that, Morgan, like it felt very easy, and not in a way, like obviously accepting, great, but there's, even when you're accepting, there's still like a conversation. I think, again, going back to Heartstoppers, I think they did a really good job with that, where one of the characters comes out with bi, and Olivia Colman, who's the mom, plays her, and you get to see like her be, accepting, and that's great, but it's a long coming out. It's like 5 minutes. It was a little too fluffy,
Yeah,
like,
I agree,
I don't.
and
Yeah,
I'm glad that you get to speak on that. I think that's
yeah.
I'm very
to
curious.
me too. The coming out scene with his mom especially was like a little bit. I don't know. There was something in there I just like almost just didn't
The
like. It
accent.
was like the accent wasn't helping anything. It was almost too jokey. It was like,
Yeah.
oh, let me tell a bunch of jokes about stuff I researched on the internet about.
Because we've already identified this person as a character, like a caricature of a character. She was not relatable. That mom was not relatable. And again, it must have been the direction, because I really don't see Uma Thurman being like, I think me snuggling on the president's couch with my 20-some-year-old son is a good idea. It
But
felt very awkward to me.
even on the flip side, the grandfather, I felt like it was like there was something there. There was something interesting to be said about like, oh, I'm okay if you're gay, but no one else will be, and then like everyone accepts him. But there, like, I feel like that scene could have been meatier. Also, interestingly enough, that's played by Stephen Fry, who was a gay actor. But so I thought that was interesting. But yeah, I just
Yeah.
feel like from both sides, they just felt very two dimensional, and that's again the weirdness of this film. There's moments where the two leads, you're like, whoa, they just said that to each other. That was really good. Like, that was really emotional. And then there's
Mhm.
moments like the coming out scene where I'm like, is this the same movie?
Yeah, the tonal shifts, I think, for me also, like, kind of threw me off, because there were some really good scenes, especially between the two leads, and they had, initially, I was also worried. I was like, "I bet these guys don't have any chemistry. Oh my god, this is gonna be such a long movie." And then they did have really good chemistry, and I think that they
Mhm.
played really well off of each other and had some great scenes. And then there'd be like a really weird cartoony scene in the middle of it, and you'd be like, "What was that?" With like, President Texas. I do see that Rachel said in the chat about Alex, he also doesn't know he's bisexual at first in the book. That realization comes later, and there's a PowerPoint about it, like his mom
Mm.
mentions. So yeah, like I think I'm not saying that like the character needed to necessarily have like a full coming out story or anything like that, but the fact that like he need like comes to terms with his bisexuality in the book on the page so that like we can see it, and then in the movie he's just kind of like, "Oh yeah, I guess I'm bisexual." And like,
Mhm.
I guess I should tell my mom. It is like a very different kind of experience. Like it's a bigger deal in the book because like we're in his head, and also he's like putting pieces together about his identity. And I think it's more affecting that way too. Like you're there with the character and you're experiencing it. Whereas in the movie, it felt like he just kind of rolled with the punches real fast. Oh, all right, cool. Like I'm really into this guy. It was sure. Um,
Uh,
yeah.
I
I,
think that was a challenge overall in the film, is that there was a lot of things where you're like, that was wonderful. I really hope people identified with that. I identified that. I thought it was great. And then you get President Texas. And it just takes you out of
Or
what
green
could have been a
screen.
really
the green
good
screen.
what do you call or the green screen?
Or
You're
the
like,
green screen. Yeah.
wow, that's
There were
pretty
some things that they
terrible.
green screened where I was like, you didn't need, why did that
You
need to
didn't
be
need
green
that.
screened? Like, could you not find a hallway?
No, they definitely could not find a hallway. And a question I have too is that do you feel like this movie, because now we've gotten a few of them. Again, we have the Heartstoppers. We've been making content about it on our channel because it's like we had Nimona and stuff like that. Do you feel like now we're gonna get even more queer movies like this? And what do you think is next on the docket? Is it gonna be more of these YA books? Is it? I mean, it's interesting because if you look at all three, they're like Nimona and Heartstoppers was comics. And then this was a YA book. I'm curious, but then also like obviously there's stuff going on in Hollywood right now. It's like nothing's being made. So,
But also a couple years ago, I think during our Forever hiatus, when we talked about Happiest Season, that movie apparently like did huge numbers for Hulu. Who knows how many? Because they won't tell you, because then when they would have to pay like adequate residuals and things to writers. So whatever, they're not going to ever tell you. Yeah, not gonna ever tell you the real numbers, but apparently it did really, really well. So I feel like the market is there for LGBTQ queer content and stories, especially like fun stuff like Christmas movies and rom-coms. But sometimes they're not always, they're not always the best.
but also
I feel like it's still a mixed bag with like the quality you get, but we'll all turn out because it's, there's not many of them.
Well, also rom-coms in general have not been great in recent years, so I think it's just the market of even straight films that have not been
I
really
feel like
good.
rom-coms like started to have like a little bit of a comeback and then just stopped having a comeback, and I was so sad because there are a couple of rom-coms that came out that were really good and really fun. And I was like,
Crazy Rich Asians.
Crazy Rich Asians. I really liked To All the Boys was really good.
Yes. Yeah.
And then it felt like, oh yeah, we're having this rom-com renaissance, and then it just kind of stopped. Like then the good rom-coms just sort of disappeared.
And Rachel's bringing up a good point. She said it earlier as well. There is a genre that's above YA. It's NA, new adult. And so the idea is it's like an 18 to 25-year-olds. So it's kind of, it's weird because you know how when we're 25, we're reading YA. When we're 35, we're reading NA. You're reading like the generation before you. So it's interesting because it's a NA book, but I do feel like this book and this movie was made for millennials. I feel like this is a millennial movie. I don't necessarily think Gen Z will watch and identify with this movie in the same way that millennials will. I don't think that anyone older than us is going to identify it in the same way that millennials will.
I thought it was really targeted to Gen Z. That's interesting.
It's so
really? I thought that this was targeted to millennials.
I kind of agree with Amy because I had a moment where when Get Low goes on and they go like Alex yells, "Oh my God, this is like the song of
my youth."
Of my youth. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm doing the math because how is it the song of how old are you? That was the song of my youth. Wait a minute.
I think they're older. I think that they're supposed to be like 27, 28.
So I think they aged them up because I think in the book he's still in college or still in or in grad school or something. They're definitely like young, on the younger side. And I think the movie did age them up a little bit. Which
he's in school though, because he has.
But he's going to law school, so he's
that still makes you like 25,
anyone between 24 to 28.
Yeah. I mean, older 20s for sure. I guess the reason I feel like maybe is still targeted to Gen Z is, you have the tropes of the cake and like the little kitschy stuff. So I was like, oh, that feels a little.
I will say, I feel like that is like rom-com. That's more rom-com genre, like romance genre stuff than it is necessarily like the audience. Rachel says, which is funny because Alex is Gen Z. Yeah, I mean, he should be technically, but they do age them up a little bit in the movie, which I thought was like a weird choice, but I guess it's because they liked the actors and they were like, well, no one's gonna buy this guy as being like 20 years old, so we gotta
try though.
I mean, listen, if Pretty Little Liars can do it, they can all do it.
That's true.
Yeah, but I do think some of the like the not the corniness, but like the a little bit of the cheese.
Wait,
You know.
Rachel in the chat is writing, according to the author, he was born in 1998. No, that makes him the same age as my littlest brother. This cannot be a movie about my littlest brother being the main character. Hold on a second. That makes me feel real hella old.
So how? Oh,
25.
Okay. Well, now, right? Because the book came out in 2019. So yeah, so early 20s. He was supposed to be like 22 probably or something like that. Which that in the book, like, they are a little bit younger in the book and like less established in like whatever they're doing. Whereas in the movie, they seem like they're older. They seem like they're like late 20s in the movie.
But and also what's really interesting about 1998, that is the cusp of Gen Z. That's when Gen Z starts.
That is true.
Just the beginning.
Just the beginning of he's the end millennial and the start of Gen Z.
But yeah, I mean, the R, I think I'd love to talk about the R rating for a second, because this did not feel like an R-rated movie to me at all. I mean, yeah, there were some sex scenes. Nothing was explicit. I've seen more on like the CW for sure.
100%. I think maybe the actual sex scene they had, if they cut it maybe 2 seconds before, they really could have gotten that PG-13. But like you said, Amy, I think earlier before the show, they cursed a couple of times. They did more than one, but I'm like, did they need that? Why? Like,
I just looked it up.
I feel like, and it's so important, I think, for like teens and to, or maybe 16, 17 to watch this. So I think it's like a shame that they're like, made it right. I'm not that 16, 17-year-olds are not going to watch a rated R film, but
yeah, I know. It's like, this movie is like literally harmless. Honestly, you could tell me this was like a Netflix, a Netflix romantic comedy for the holidays, and I'd be like, yeah, no, the vibes are right.
It's not something I feel like if I was watching with my parents, I'd be like, oh no,
gotta turn this off. Yeah,
you gotta turn that one off.
They make a couple of like vague off color, like sexual jokes that like aren't even that bad.
They're not even that.
When I heard it was rated R, I was like, what, really? Why?
Oh, Amy is roboting.
We are.
What did you say, Amy? Because you completely roboted.
We lost you for a minute.
But you might be back now.
What? Up.
Amy is, Well, as we wait for Amy, she's moving, but I think she'll tell. I think she'll
return to us soon.
She's gonna be returning very soon. She actually sent a message. Let's see. It's my internet. She's like, all right,
I have returned.
Yay!
Okay.
I'm back.
What were you saying, Amy?
I looked up how you get R-rated, and if you use the F word once,
more than once,
it's PG-13. If you use it more than once or once in a sexual context, then it's rated R.
I don't know if they did that.
They did, because Zara's character once referred to, censor warning, she referred to Henry as the fuckboy. And that is right there. I was like, there's the rated R, but they did use the F word more than once. I recognized it.
I don't think it was
because
worth
I knew it was R-rated, and
Yeah.
I was like paying attention to it. I was listening for that because I had a feeling that's why they were going to be R-rated. And sure enough,
I was shocked when I saw that R-rated. I'm like, is that wrong? Did
Again?
Amazon Prime get it?
Yeah, gonna go for it. I could have used some more butt cheeks in it. I'm just saying.
No, I agree. If you're gonna make it rated R, make it a little bit more.
That's
Go
kind
for
of
it, man.
when I saw it was rated R, I was like, oh man, these sex scenes are going to be pretty explicit. And I will say, like, that was one of the things in the book where I was kind of like, oh my god, okay, because there were a lot of sex scenes in the book, and they would go on for
spicy.
They were spicy. You would like them, Amy. They went on for too many pages for me. I was like, I get it. They are having sex. It is amazing. Okay, let's go. Let's get back to the story.
Oh, this is the third time? Okay.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Really?
Maybe you won't like the book series I want you to read. It's pretty. So continue.
But so I expected the sex scenes to be like a little bit more, I don't know, something. I was like, oh, this is these sex scenes are very mild. They're anything like sort of the book where it would like linger over them. So yeah, I didn't feel like it needed to be an R at all for me. I would have just like taken out some of the language and probably gone for that PG-13.
I think that's what the route I would have went.
I think they had fun with it.
So I think we're getting to the time to see our overall thoughts. But I have a feeling, Amy, it seems like you like this. I mean, again, I did not hate the movie. I enjoyed it. It seems like you enjoyed it the most.
I think I did. I genuinely just had fun with it. I think like I it would be a fun one to watch with a friend. Fun one to chat about at work. Like, hey, did you guys see the super cheesy red, white, and royal blue? Overall, I think that there were definitely some moments that I connected with. I thought the acting for some of the characters was really well done. I could have used less Texas. And I know this is weird, and I didn't want it because I want the female president to get reelected. I kind of wanted her to lose. I know that's weird. Kind of did.
It would have added some drama, but I don't know if it fit
would have
this movie because there was no drama.
No, there was no drama.
There was a pretty lack of drama.
Yeah, I think by like having to squeeze everything into 2 hours, they had to cut down on all of the like the politics stuff, which is really present in the book and like feels higher stakes in the book because like you're with them on the campaign and you're, you know,
we went to Texas.
Yeah, he did. He went to Texas. The guy that she is running against is like, so I believe the author wrote this in like 2016 as like an alternate reality where like Hillary Clinton won
Oh,
and
that's
Trump
cool.
had lost. And so the her like the guy that she's running against is like a lot more Trump like. He's like, you know,
Yeah,
kind of
they didn't do that here.
yeah, like seriously, like a bad dude, and like a scandal breaks out about him at the end and things like that. They weren't really interested in the politics of it all, except as sort of like a backdrop to the rest of the interpersonal
They're just like,
drama.
he's a Republican.
Yeah, exactly. Jobs and stuff, I guess. So yeah, it's hard to get invested in the election in this movie because like there don't seem to be any stakes to it. And like, you know, maybe there's like one or two scenes where the, you know, mama president in her accent is like, you know, I have to do these things so that I get elected so like I can protect people, but like it's not really connected to anything because we're not seeing her, you know, her opponent as anybody who would be, you know, bad or, you know, for the country or anything. So yeah, I feel like they kind of like the politics aspect of it felt almost like you could just remove it from this movie and nothing would be different. Like it didn't need to be during election year, just in terms of the movie.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. But Morgan, what was your overall thoughts on the whole film?
Yeah, I think a lot like Amy, I really enjoyed it for what it was. I will say, I think I kind of wish I had gone into it without having read it, because I think I would have had like a kinder perspective on it. Having read the book, I was like, "Oh, this is yeah, the book is so much better."
Different.
It's yeah, the problem is like the book is like just legitimately a lot better than this movie. And so the movie doesn't really live up in any way to the book, which is very enjoyable, has like a lot of depth and like the movie is kind of yeah, it's a fun romantic romp, but it like loses all the depth from the book. So it is a fun movie. I would like recommend it to people. I would tell them like, yeah, it's like a fun romance. If you like rom-coms, it is going to be one of the cheapest movies you've seen. I guess all of Amazon's money went to the Lord of the Rings show, and none was left over for any accent coaching for Uma.
Yeah.
Definitely not. Definitely not. Yeah, no, I had a good time with it. I enjoyed the film. I think it was good for the genre it's in. I don't regret watching it. I think there's maybe some times in the middle it gets a little slow, but for the most part, it's pretty easy to watch. So see the movie if this is your genre. If you don't like rom-coms, you probably shouldn't.
You won't like it.
No, if you don't like rom-coms, this is not going to be your cup of tea.
No, definitely not. All right, well, let's go around and see what's coming up for everybody. So, Amy, what is coming up for you? What do you want to plug?
You guys can find me on Instagram, Amy_HYP. And I can finally, since the casting is finally out, share that I am going to be in Oceanside Theater Company's production of Welcome to Sleepy Hollow, which is an original musical by Heather McGill. And here's the really fun part. I was in this 20 years ago. over
Crazy.
20 years ago. When I
Whoa.
was a kid, the first ever production of this little musical from a local creator was presented, and I was in it the first 2 times it was ever performed. I was this little kid, and I was like, they literally added characters for me because my brother, who is a spectacular singer, was one of the only young youth male actors in San Diego. So
Wow.
he was getting the youth male leads, and I was like the little sister. So they were like, oh, we'll create a role for the little sister. So I was in it both times, and now I am playing the lead. So I'm really excited for you
Ooh.
guys to come see it. I'm playing Katrina Van Tassel. It is the entire month of October in Oceanside, California.
Spooky.
It's spooky season. Yeah,
season.
that's the best part, and it's gonna be a really fun musical. So, excuse me. If you guys are in town and you want some fun little spookiness, you can find information on oceansidetheater.org. Theater, spelled like the Brits do. Theater, TRE at the end.org, and look it up. So come join us in Sleepy Hollow.
Awesome. And Morgan, what's coming up for you?
Nothing too exciting. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Mojotastic, and you can find me as a co-host on Supergirl Radio, where we've been talking about the My Adventures with Superman animated show on HBO Max. Actually, it's just Max now. So if you've been watching that and enjoying that, come and chat with us about it.
And for me, find me at Comic Uno. And we got our Kickstarter going on for Beast and Snow. So if you like romance, you want some real rated R stories, go check out our Snow White, Beauty and the Beast, Werewolf, Vampire Kickstarter going on. It's until the end of August, and it's doing well. So we're excited about that. But that's it for us. Tell us what other queer content we should be covering, because I'm sure we will be covering it. And stay legendary.